Alright guys, welcome back to F1 Drama. Christian Horner is at it again on the 11th potential Formula 1 team. Andretti want to come into the sport. Horner says he's happy for that to happen if the conditions are met. Clapping back at Günther Steiner as well, who said that he doesn't want an 11th team in, by stating Andretti will provide potentially more value than many current teams we have in F1. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. This is the Ferrari SF-23, we believe at least, but it's under this cover. It's got 4 wheels, it's going to be red, that's all we can say for now. We do, however, have this image, which you can actually see the nose of the car a bit here, which does look rather similar to last year's. Not really a massive surprise, let's be honest, but this is what we have so far from Ferrari. In 2 days' time, the Ferrari gets revealed well, tomorrow actually, we get 2 more car reveals. I'll share for you guys in a second. Yesterday, we got this one from AlphaTauri. They launched it in New York for like the New York Fashion Week or something like that, because AlphaTauri, basically a fashion brand, does raise the question how long AlphaTauri will actually be a thing in Formula 1. Is it just there to kind of promote the launch of this fashion brand? I don't know, I guess we'll see down the line, but there's an argument that even Christian Horner is stating that Andretti might be more valuable to the sport than a team like this. We'll see that here in a couple of seconds time, but also this announcement here from AlphaTauri, we can see the car going around, what is this, Imola, and this is the new livery. So it's blue and white as expected. It's also got some interesting red on there. I kind of like the red. I do wonder if there's, for me, I think there's maybe a bit too much red, but I know that some like it compared to last year's car for sure, and that this is what it looks like from another angle. So it's not exactly clear if this is going to be the exact model that's going to turn up in Bahrain, but yeah, blue and white, but also a lot of red on the car as well, which is kind of nice. I guess it's the all-in red in a way as well, having partnered with them since Alfa Romeo, well, are no longer partnering with them, and this is the comparison between last year's AlphaTauri and this year's AlphaTauri, which of course there are some similarities, there are some differences, namely in the red. Will it be quicker? I don't know. We've had some interesting words here from Franz Tost actually talking about Yuki Tsunoda, because at this point Tsunoda really needs to have a good season. Of course that's only possible if the car is any good, but Tsunoda's at a point where he's got to be concerned about all these Red Bull juniors coming through the ranks and fearing the possibility of himself being taken out of the seat next year unless he delivers a good season. He had his good moments last season, his pace is there, but there's obviously some other elements where he needs to score more points more often if they want to keep him around, and Franz Tost is certainly putting the pressure on. So these are the 5 cars that have been revealed so far: the Haas, the Red Bull, the Williams, the Alfa Romeo and the AlphaTauri. Over the coming days we will get the rest, but yeah, based on Christian Horner's comments, I wonder which of these cars you believe would provide less value to the sport than Andretti, were Andretti to come through and potentially replace one of these teams. Of course that won't happen, it's the addition, but I still think the point from Horner might potentially stand, as we'll see here in a second. The other cars remaining are the following. So tomorrow we get the McLaren and the Aston Martin. On the 14th we get the Ferrari, and then the 15th and the 16th is the Mercedes W14 or whatever the Alpine is called, respectively, as we get all 10 cars around about a week before we go to Bahrain for pre-season testing. This then is where the drama begins. A couple of days ago now, Günther Steiner says the following: there is no upside to a new team joining the F1 grid. Now, when the Andretti proposal was coming through, this Andretti proposal is serious, partnered of course with Cadillac and General Motors. They've got the money, they've got the infrastructure, they've got the resources, they've got the backing, they've got the support of the FIA, even though Formula 1 say it doesn't matter what the FIA say, we're the ones that make the call here, which probably is a fair point as well, such that, well, to such an extent that Mohammed bin Sulayem took a step back from his position the other day and will now work more in the background. For reasons like that and others, but 2 teams seem to support this move, one of which being McLaren, we believe, which might make sense because they're partnered with Andretti on the IndyCar side, and also Alpine because we think they want to supply Andretti with their Renault engines, which also is a possibility as well. So there's a reason why there's like 2 teams on the grid that want the 11th team, the other 8 do not, and Günther Steiner, despite being a small team in Haas, obviously doesn't want Andretti in, and you can kind of understand why, if you're Haas, you wouldn't want an actual, real American team with real heritage to come in and blow you out the water as an American outfit. And certainly you look at the Haas offering today compared to what Andretti offer, it's kind of no-brainer that Andretti are the way to go. But several years ago when Haas came in, if we'd have been in the same position we are now with all the growth we have seen, then Haas would probably have been a non-option, but because they actually were a reasonable offering at the time, they got into the sport, whereas Andretti now, a far more, compelling offering, you could argue, are not getting in, largely because the sport has grown massively and the teams want to ensure they're not the ones paying for it. Money always talks at the end of the day. So this is what Gunther Steiner says. 5 years ago, you could get teams for nothing. Nobody wanted teams. They all went out of business. Now all of a sudden, everyone wants a team. The 10 teams that are here, they're financially stable. They are all well set up. It's a good environment at the moment. Nobody is struggling. Put an 11th team in, you get a little bit of a dip in the economy. All of a sudden, people may struggle to survive. Seems a bit of a stretch to me, but fair enough. Why take the risk if there's no upside? Because of an 11th team, what upside is it bringing? So, okay, the argument is fundamentally that the teams get paid out the money that they generate, and if you bring a new team into the fray, the teams therefore get less revenue as a result because it's split between the teams. So, of course, someone's got to pay, in a sense, for this entrance coming in. So someone's got to pay for this entrance, and obviously Haas are of the mind of, yeah, we don't want to risk it because there's no benefit and it's all risk. Reality is probably slightly different with the potential, addition that could be made from a Cadillac and Andretti or General Motors. These guys coming into the sport could be very positive. The fans generally want to see it, but, obviously some teams don't want it, maybe for money reasons. Haas might have other reasons not to want it just because, in terms of an American team, they are barely American and probably would get blown out of the water in the American market were Andretti to come through. That's at least one way to look at this. So as Steiner said, it's just risk, there's no upside, because what upside is an 11th team bringing? And this is an argument that many team principals have made, but some would say a bit of an L on this one. Now, really what he's talking about here is the Concord Agreement. As I say, the revenue gets diluted with a new team coming through for the teams. Therefore, the team entering has to pay an entry fee to prop that up for a few years. Now, this number currently is $200 million, but a lot of the teams are saying, well, when that was decided, it was a few years ago, and that money now is not relevant to what the money should be today. People are talking more 600 million, 700 million, if not more, for the entering team. Now, I think probably Andretti and obviously Cadillac and General Motors could make that happen, but actually coming down and sitting together and making this work so that they can come up with a number that seems about right is obviously not going to happen easily, because the teams don't want to take any risk on this, and also one more, addition to the grid means one more competitor. So this is where things get pretty spicy, with Christian Horner going on to say Andretti may bring in more value than some of the existing franchises, not just one of the existing franchises, but potentially multiple of the existing franchises. He would prefer Andretti to be in than some of these. However, he is unsure how their entry will be financed. These are his words that he says. The first bit is pretty spicy, right? Now, he says, okay, if Liberty Media, the owners to the rights of Formula One, if they would pay for it, then no one's going to have a problem, he believes. If it doesn't matter, if it didn't matter if teams' budgets didn't go down, that's obviously a more sensitive issue for smaller teams than bigger ones, then I don't think it'd be a problem at all. It's nothing personal against Andretti or Cadillac, it's just business administration. I would like to see the Andretti brand in Formula One. They may bring in more than some of the existing franchises. American team, great heritage, they would be killing it, I'm sure, on the sponsorship side, bringing in loads of eyeballs and money from America. I think it might make a fair bit of sense. But I come back to the basic question, do the teams finance it? Does it finance Formula One? Because who does not pay is the FIA, because they only get more entry fees, which is obviously a good point why Mohammed Ben Sulayem and others want this to happen, because they get more money if, the more entry fees for more teams. So bigger discussion that needs to be had collectively between everyone involved, says Horner. But I thought it was pretty spicy, right? And it almost feels like he was looking directly at Gunther Steiner in the eyes when he said, yeah, they might well bring more value than some teams on the grid. Because when you look at the grid, right, and you see some of these teams, especially, okay, Haas, obviously, small outfits. If would I rather have Andretti or Haas on the grid? Obviously, that's kind of a no-brainer. But also, I do think it's true for potentially other brands as well. I mean, Williams, as great heritage as they have in Formula One and racing, they're not the same Williams they used to be, right? Since they got bought out by Doralton or whatever it was, since they kind of sold Williams Racing, they're not the same. Okay, they've got the heritage, they've got the memories, right, from when they used to dominate the sport at times. But today, Williams is a shadow of its former self and don't even have the money to reach the budget count. I think we believe they might be at 110 mil they can spend every year. Every other team is spending 140 mil. That means they're always going to be kind of near the back of the grid. It's just how it's going to be. So unfortunate as it is, would I, if there had to be 10 teams and 10 teams only, would I prefer Andretti, Cadillac, F1 or whatever, or Williams? I'd probably have to say I prefer the Andretti team to come through. I'd say the same about AlphaTauri. Their car's been going downhill a bit, certainly last year. They're fundamentally a fashion brand. I don't imagine AlphaTauri is the brand will be in Formula 1 too much longer. There's rumours that maybe Honda will buy them out or Red Bull will sell them somewhere. So yeah, I don't know. I think there's a good few brands that I'd rather have Andretti on the grid than those companies, even though, you know, Williams, it feels kind of sad to do it, but it's not the same as it used to be, Williams. I think there's no denying that one, really. Then, of course, the other, well, brands on the grid, the Red Bulls, the Ferraris, even, of course, Sauber, right, that are going to be Audi, Aston Martin, McLaren, Alpine, that are Renault. Like, obviously, all those make sense, but there are a few that I think Andretti would be welcome over certain teams. And if certain teams are here, then why not have Andretti as an 11th team? They'd surely be more competitive than some of them. I think that's pretty likely. So it's far from a done deal, but yeah, Horner kind of indirectly calling out Günther Steiner there. I don't know if he was aware of Steiner's comments before he made those comments, but it kind of feels like he might have been in saying, well, look, you know, Andretti, we're not sure it's going to make sense or going to happen, but, you know, they're more valuable than some teams on this grid is kind of what he was getting at. Now, the F1 CEO has actually mentioned that Andretti are not doing themselves favours by calling the other teams greedy, and they're obviously taking this kind of vocal approach to trying to get into the series. I don't really know if that's going to matter down the line, but yeah, effectively saying they're trying to push the system and shouting and screaming at all this type of stuff to try and get in. And of course, Domenicali from Formula 1 is trying to ensure that nothing happens with all the teams being on board, which they might be down the line, but as it stands, there is still a lot of criticism being leveled at this potential move. So we'll see how it goes, but yeah, Christian Horner can't stay out of some sort of team principal beef and drama for more than a couple of weeks at a time. And just to close out here, some images from Mercedes on their new race suits. I can't tell any difference to last year's race suits, to be honest, but I thought I'll just share if you guys are particularly interested. Maybe the names and numbers down here, were they there before? I don't really know. If you guys know any better, let me know. And also just these comments from George Russell to close out the video. But hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.